Hey there, y'all, and welcome to Sideline Shenanigans,
your go-to Texas Legacy podcast,
where we'll talk all things club, culture,
and chaos from inside our volleyball world.
We're your hosts. I'm Jen Cobb, director at Texas Legacy.
And I'm Katie Davis, owner of Texas Legacy. And we're excited to dive in and talk about who we are, where we came from,
and what makes us the best club around.
We'll be flawed, unfiltered,
and most likely winging it every week.
So buckle up and we'll see you on the sidelines.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about some of the crazy that parents have said to us, approached us about. We understand because of A, how expensive this sport is, and B, how much time it requires of parents and of kids that, you know, a lot of people don't have summer vacations. A lot of people are spending their money to go to nationals in Vegas, or a lot of people are spending their money to go to Minneapolis in March for spring break or whatever. And that is their, you know, quote unquote family vacation. So we want, you know, parents to enjoy themselves, have fun. So a lot of the stories stem from, you know, parents just letting loose and maybe enjoying their time, which we are fully guilty of as well.
Yeah. And not sorry about it.
And I'm a little sorry about it.
I guess it depends which one we're talking about.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So I will start this. Katie. We're not using names. Okay.
I typically overshare.
So I'm
gonna try to have boundaries today.
Bad oversharer here.
Yeah. Self-aware.
But this story has nothing to do with Legacy. This was from before I came to Legacy, and this was one of those moments where, as a coach, I was like, wow, you know, this was before I had Tate. I didn't have a child. I was not a parent. Really didn't understand it at that point, and still, even though now, like, I've been doing this for as long as I have, and I am a parent, I still don't get it, not one bit. But this dad. So when I lived in Fort Worth, I coached at Aledo, and it was a school there. Very, very talented kids at that school. So even though I was coaching 7th and 8th grade, those kids were very, very good volleyball players. But when you coach at school, so like with club, there's really no movement down. Once you make a higher level team, like, you're not going to get moved down unless it's some kind of extraordinary circumstance or whatever, and mutual agreement. That's just not something that we do. But in school sports, that was pretty normal to move between teams. And so I had a girl that I think she started out on the A team, 8th grade A team, okay? She got bumped down to the B team for a tournament, and apparently in doing so, triggered her parents, and obviously went about it in a very professional manner. Had a meeting with the girl, told her, you know, this, that, and the other thing. These are all of the reasons why I'm making this decision. It doesn't have to be permanent. It can just be for this tournament, this game, whatever it was. That did not go over well with the parents. So we go to the tournament. You know, they're giving me the side eye the whole time, which I don't typically notice because I don't pay a whole lot of attention. But it became very apparent. And so then I get a phone call from Dad after the tournament, and he is just railing on me. I mean, I'm talking, he was yelling at me, cussing at me, telling me how dumb I am and how I don't know what I'm doing, how great his daughter is, because he hired a statistician to come to our tournament to take stats for his daughter. Again, people, I remind you, this is 8th grade, B team at that point. So she was 14 years old. And he hired someone to come and take stats. I'm sure they were great stats. And then proceeded to tell me all of the ways in which I was an idiot and made terrible decisions. And as I sat there on the phone with him and let him speak his piece and talk through his feelings and big emotions, you know, when it was my turn to speak, I said all of the things that I needed to say in a very civil manner, and basically just helped him to realize a little bit in that moment that I didn't agree with the things that he was saying, and that some things are subjective, and, you know, those are not the same stats that I took, and this is why. And by the end of that conversation, the dad straight up told me, I know absolutely nothing about volleyball, so I probably should have trusted you more. And I'm on the phone with this man for like an hour, and I was like, Cool. Okay. Well, as long as we're clear about that I actually do know what I'm doing and, feel very confident in the decisions that I'm making, it's not necessarily for you to know or to understand, but to support that and to help your kid. Again, if she sees this as a moment of failure, help her navigate that. Don't come at me. Don't hire someone to come to the tournament to take stats and then try to prove a point. Like that's going to do absolutely nothing. It did absolutely nothing. And then he was able to admit by the end, he didn't know what he was talking about. And so it was just a waste of time and money.
Yeah, but that for me is like one of the biggest things. Okay, sir, so you were upset. I understand your kid getting moved
For
around. Sure, but reach out in a calm manner and say, hey, just have some questions. I'm confused. So I can better help my daughter understand.
Right.
Can you provide me with some tools to do so? Instead of letting your pride and ego be so large that you make a complete ass of yourself and waste everybody's time.
Yeah. Yeah. It was the end of that. I was just like, wow, this is where we're at. And it's funny. He loved me after that. Loved me. And his daughter stayed on B team, just so we're clear. Didn't make me change my mind. Didn't do anything. So
it's so funny. People pleasing Katie would have handled that like so gently years ago. And, this new Katie, they come back with Connor and Katie, not so much.
Oh, yeah, this job has shaped and molded us into very different people than maybe we once were.
No doubt.
But either way, we put a lot into what we do. This is a job for us. So, you're paying us at this point. That was obviously, I was working for a school, but, they hired me to do a job and I was, devoted to doing a really good job as we are here. Like our coaches take this very seriously. A lot of them, come to us with questions and whatnot. And when parents get involved, it's like, we try to help them navigate those situations. But at the end of the day, a lot of times it's completely avoidable if people were just looking out for like what is actually best for their kid. And I think that a lot of times that's not what it is. It is an ego thing. It's a pride thing. And then, sometimes you got to get in your place.
Yeah. I have a quick little story. This was relatively recent. Speaking of us putting a lot of time and effort into our job and making decisions, most of you probably don't know the thought process and strategy that goes behind entering qualifiers and making tournament schedules to fit everybody's needs and where they can compete the best, but we're not playing our own teams all the time. And anyways, there's a lot that goes into it. And apparently I am oversimplifying it for people. I'm not sure, or maybe they're just oversimplifying it because I had a parent request a change of qualifier after receiving the schedule because it was going to be in Minneapolis and it was going to be snowing and cold. So they just wanted to know if there was
can we change that?
Any chance that we could change that because they really just didn't want to have to mess with the weather. No. What?
Yeah.
No, that's actually not how that works. No. We don't pick qualifiers based on weather.
Yeah, we can't
ever
do that.
Yeah, but thanks. This is cute.
I think that maybe we should talk about that for a second. Just it's insanity that has become registering for qualifiers. I know people bitch about the housing, all of that. That's a whole other thing. It's something we have very little control over, and we do our very, very best. This bougie is not going to just stay anywhere. Okay, so we do our best for housing. Sometimes it's just completely out of our hands. There's nothing we can do about it. As far as tournaments go, I will say I have been actively helping look at qualifiers and travel stuff for us for 10 years, I'll say. In those 10 years, it went from, if we didn't register for a qualifier the day that it opened, like we were fine for months. We could last minute register for something and be totally fine to be able to get in, get paid, put it on the schedule, whatever. That is no longer the case at all. If we are not online the moment a qualifier tournament opens up, to register for that tournament in literally any division at this point, we will not get into that tournament. It is just, they're all feeling the market for club volleyball has become so saturated. There are so many teams, there are so many clubs that want to travel and compete at these qualifiers that we quite literally will not get into a tournament unless we register for it the moment that it opens up. So if that gives any perspective to anything, I hope that you guys understand a little bit better that so much of it is just like it's completely not changeable whatsoever. We had to pull out of a qualifier last year because they never gave us housing.
Yeah, they couldn't give us. It was like 4 weeks out, and we still didn't have housing.
So they allowed us to register for the tournament, and then it was a stay to play, but they couldn't provide us with housing,
And they wouldn't let us book our own.
and they wouldn't let us book our own. So
that team had to miss out on the qualifier, and we had to
ultimately, yeah.
give credit for that.
So it's stuff like that. Like so much stuff is unpredictable. It's out of our hands. There's quite literally nothing that we can do about it. For us, the mere thought that somebody would think that because it's going to be snowing somewhere that we could just change something on a whim is insane. But
No, and my
but like we
reaction-
get it too because it didn't used to always be like that. It was not necessarily like that. But
No,
also,
I don't get it.
no.
With the based on snow.
Okay, well, no, that doesn't make sense. But to think that maybe it would be simple to change something, I can understand to a certain extent.
Sure, but I think if there was like hey, a couple of our kids have some kind of school event that they're going to
Snow allergy?
So can we please put different qualifiers for not missing our team? I can't even, in any point in my life, could I have thought to myself when I was 20, when I was 30, now when I was 40, that I would have approached somebody at an organization and
Right.
asked them to make a change based on my lack of desire
Yeah, or like my personal needs.
to be in snow.
Okay, no, it's totally unreasonable when you put it that way. I understand that. You know what?
But we say this all the time, Jen. You always tell me, you have that face. Like people just tell you things. They
Yeah,
ask
I
you
don't
questions. They want to talk to you all the time. Do I have that face that like our parents will say stuff like that? I mean, seriously, I remember getting that email. God, I almost want to pull it up and give you words verbatim, but I'm not going to.
I think you're going to have to tell me offline here who that was because I
But,
don't
like,
remember who it was.
It was like, you've got to be kidding me right now. It provided me with a lot of humor
Right.
that day. I mean, I laughed.
And
a
we're still
lot.
talking about it. So there
Yes,
you go.
but-
Thank you to that parent.
But also,
I was dying the other day because one of our mutual friends, she doesn't care if I say her name, Jen Davis, her daughter is now playing club volleyball up in DFW. And I was talking about Nashville, and I was, she was saying, if I'm good as long as unscheduled volleyball tournament doesn't pop up. And I was like, excuse me? And she was like, what? And I said, do you not have a set schedule? Like, parents will literally eat us alive if we start trying to change stuff like in the middle of the season, unwarranted or whatever. And she said, I mean, it's mostly set, but like, yeah, they've had a couple tournaments pop up here and there. I was like, what? I can't imagine that. But with soccer, they'll be like, hey, by the way, this weekend we're playing in Oklahoma.
yeah.
Tate's baseball. It's practice tonight.
Mm-mm.
What? I'm sorry. It's Friday. Anyway. So we try really hard to create a schedule, to stick to that schedule. Obviously, with situations like what we're talking about, stuff comes up, not because of snow. That's not going to change the schedule, but there have been situations in which we, put something on a schedule, registered for it, got waitlisted, and then had to change it. I mean, stuff like that happens, unfortunately, now more frequently than ever.
I mean, we can take requests if you'd like to go to Vegas because you like to gamble and drink. Then we'll gladly put that into our thought process. I'm just kidding. Absolutely not. We try to stay away from Vegas.
No, we don't.
We
I
do.
mean, not-
we
not-
do.
yeah, we go because we do good. Ew, we do well.
Damn it! I wanted to correct you.
Yeah, you didn't even get the chance. Corrected myself first. Something else that we wanted to talk about. I don't know. Maybe we should keep going with parent stories.
Yeah.
Okay, so I had an incident that happened in Chicago. This was I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years ago, that we're in the middle of a match, and this parent was very brazen anyway, very loud, wanted to make his presence known always. And there was a somewhat questionable call at the net that involved his daughter. And listen, from my perspective, she was absolutely in the net. So I'm not going to argue that. I'm very rarely going to argue with officials unless it is blatant and I feel very, very strongly about whatever the situation is. In that situation, she had already been in the net multiple times, and I saw the net move. So I'm not going to question it. Well, Dad did not like that I wasn't getting involved, so he took it upon himself to scream at the refs, to do all the things. I want to say he might have even gotten kicked out of that match. I'm not sure. But anyways, approaches me afterwards and basically gets in my face, screaming and yelling at me because I didn't stick up for his daughter in a moment where she absolutely was not in the net. And this is at a tournament. We have rules. There's all kinds of things. And like I said, this dad is well known for these kind of antics. And so I just kind of took it with a grain of salt. But it's like, that is a very subjective call, first of all. It is a net call, and the ref obviously saw what they thought was a net violation. So they called it, and Dad didn't like it. Dad proceeds to scream at me because he didn't like a call that the ref made that I agreed with. So it's like, how do I even navigate that? I literally just sat there, let him scream at me, and then said, I agree with the ref. He definitely did not like that. And then I didn't come back after that. But, you know, it is what it is. I think that parents can be so unbelievably unreasonable about things that truly don't matter. I think that we were actually getting our kicked in that match, and I'm pretty sure that heightened, you know, the sensitivity or whatever.
Yeah, that was about his ego.
But it was also, she had gotten several net calls. And they were all valid. Like, I'm seeing it. I actually asked the opposite team to send me the video because I don't know what was going on with our film. I think it might have been on the other side of the court, so you couldn't see it. So I asked the other team to send me film so that I could, like, send it to him. I don't know that I ever went that far, but it's just stuff like that where it's like...
But also when you're getting your ass kicked, parents, listen.
I am absolutely not arguing calls when we're getting our ass kicked.
When you're losing like 17-6... no, that wasn't the score. I'm just
I have no idea what the score was.
I'm not going to argue a call.
No.
It's not going to change the trajectory of the game.
Right.
It's not. Okay, if it's, 20-23, sure. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I'll definitely
if it matters.
Even if I know that I'm wrong, I'll argue a call just to kind of buy us some time and maybe to throw the other team in, a little bit of a panic.
Right.
Distracting, I don't know.
Yeah, but I feel like, like tensions get so heightened when your team is just getting obliterated, and a lot of that, like, I can understand to a certain extent. We're traveling all the way to Chicago to get our asses kicked, like, that sucks. But at the same time, it's like, you have to understand in that situation as a parent that most of the reason that we were getting killed the way that we were was because of the mistakes by our team. And so I'm not going to then try to put the blame on something else that's irrelevant, like a net call, that is not contributing to what's going on our side of the floor. So, you as parents, I guess that's another kind of way of making excuses for our kids, like make this about something that it's actually not about at all. This loss is due to the fact that we're playing like and sometimes that just happens, and it's okay.
Yeah.
And we don't have to try to make excuses for it. We don't have to try to make it better. We don't have to try to validate our kids. It's fine. Sometimes we just have bad games. And again, volleyball is a game of failure, so I think the team with the least amount of mistakes is the team that's typically going to win.
For sure.
Especially when you're playing at that level.
Well, on this topic of overreactive parents, this was before I started Legacy. I was working for another club, and we were in Colorado when Colorado had a qualifier. We were there.
They don't even have that qualifier anymore?
No, that USAD took it away because they wouldn't let that mom breastfeed inside. They wouldn't let the mom bring her baby into the qualifier was COVID year. She couldn't bring the baby into the qualifier. And so there was this
Oh my gosh, I completely forgot about that.
big ordeal over it. And so they completely removed Colorado Crossroads as qualifier.
Wow. I don't know that I've like thought about that since I remember that incident, but wow.
It's crazy. Okay, so we were there. We were playing a division we should have never been played in. Like, literally, barely an American level team, and I think that we were in USA or Open.
Yeah.
It was bad. It was bad. But regardless, you know, I was trying to let the girls work through some errors and remember that they can like recover, right? Teach them that they can recover from a mistake, whatever. So one of my players, she was our right side. You know, she had several hitting errors and she was very agitated, but I left her in. I wanted her to work through it. It was her turn to rotate off so that a setter could go in.
We'll talk about that.
So that'll be our follow-up from here. So a setter could go in and on back row. And so she comes off the court and I was like, hey, like take a breath, go recover, go to the end of the bench. And I'm like, you know, doing like this. And she's like, I was terrible. Why did you leave me in? You should have subbed me out. And she's like doing this number and she's like so mad because she knew she was doing bad and she wanted to come out. Like she didn't want to let her team down, but I was trying to give her a moment. Like we weren't playing for anything at that point. I wanted her to grow and navigate in that moment, or you know, from that moment.
Yeah.
And navigate what it looks like to have an error and be able to recover. And so I'm trying to explain it to her, and I was like, dude, you're good. Like go. We'll talk after the game. Like go to the end of the bench, get engaged with your team, whatever. And her mom was like apparently boiling on the parent sideline, right? I do see all the things, by the way. I'm very aware of what's happening on the parent sideline.
So
Jennifer,
unaware.
not so much. So, you know, the game finishes or whatever, and her mom comes storming up to me, and she is lighting me up about how I destroyed her kid and how embarrassing, and the way that I was speaking to her. And I was like, okay. All right, first of all, no, you're not going to approach me in the middle of a tournament. Second of all, you probably need to talk to your kid before you come screaming and making accusations. Yeah. I was pissed. So we left, whatever. Later that day, her mom is blowing me up, trying to text me to have a conversation. I'm not responding. I will not respond. We're in the middle of a tournament. We're in the middle of a qualifier. We're still on a whole other day at this point. No. Her mom was so desperate after talking to her daughter. She slid me a note under my hotel door. And was like, I am so sorry. I talked to my daughter and she was so mad at herself and had nothing to do with you. But yeah, no.
Right.
But all you saw was the interaction between me and your daughter. You thought that I took her out of the game. No. It was her turn to sub out so that our setter could go in and play back row and set a ball.
But even if not, but clearly you had reason to pull her otherwise.
Without a doubt. Okay? But like that, I'm the one telling her, like, it's okay. You gotta like cool off. Like, we just gotta learn to work through these things or whatever. But the parent from, 30 feet away is making her own narrative of how that went down instead of waiting. That happens all the time. Yes. I use this example with our coaches and parents literally all the time because your emotions are so big while you're sitting there with your kid is playing bad and maybe you're feeling insecure about her performance or you don't agree with the coach's decision. So you're, pointing out everybody else's flaws and how the coach is responding to somebody maybe that isn't your kid because do you see the way that she's responding to her?
Right.
Like you're just making your own narrative over there,
your
own story, your own assumption instead of just like letting it be.
Right.
And this mom felt like such a jerk as she should.
Yeah.
Because she lit my up for no reason.
Right.
And the daughter was mortified. The daughter was sobbing hysterically, coming to my room later, and I was like, we are okay.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to speak to your mom.
Note, we will never hold your actions against your kids.
I mean,
okay?
Your kid may not be asked back the next year, but...
Well, if you make a big enough spectacle, but it is the whole...
Yeah.
My kid's gonna suffer the consequences of me and blah, blah, blah. And that doesn't actually happen.
No. And I was like, we're good. I'm not going to talk to your mom while we're here, but we are good. And I'll speak to her when we get back. And then that mom, all weekend, she kept trying to talk to me. I was like, no.
Yeah.
No. So, y'all.
Yeah, make sure that you get the full story. That happens very, very frequently. with parents coming to coaches, coming to us, skipping right over the whole sequence of events that needs to happen before people come to us about their complaints. One of the huge problems with parents that come and complain is that they don't know the way that the game actually works. And I don't know that there is anything more frustrating than parents that just simply don't understand the game. They don't understand rotations. They don't understand substitutions. They don't understand the way that, based on what you were just saying, when it's time for a right side to come out, it's because a setter has to go in and you're making 2 subs at a time. And if you don't sub her out, there's not a setter on the court. Those kinds of things are very, very basic to the game of volleyball. And we wish constantly that parents would be a little bit more educated. I think that happens probably the most with right sides having to come out for setters and never getting to serve. Why does my daughter never get to serve? Well, does she come out so that a setter can go in? Because that's the setter's number one rotation, and she has to serve so that she's in the game. It also happens with middles a lot. Well, why does my kid not get to play on the back row? Well, your kid is the one that the libero goes in for, or whatever. Just a lack of understanding of the basics of the sport is incredibly frustrating. And that's why when people are like, I coach, I've done this, I've done that, I've coached football, I've coached baseball, and they want to tell us their opinions about the way that things should be run, well, that's great. But if you don't actually know how the game of volleyball is played and what rotations look like and how substitutions work, then I don't really need your resume of how you're a baseball coach for the last however long. That doesn't matter to me, because you don't actually know what you're talking about. When we sub somebody in, that completely eliminates that kid's ability to go in for anybody else at any point in time during that set. So once that's done, it's done. I can't then take her back out or whatever and then put her in for somebody else. You can't do that. But again, that's one of those things that so many parents don't understand. She got to go in for one rotation. Why didn't you put her in here? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? This girl sucked. Blah, 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 blah.
Well,
okay.
Or she didn't do anything wrong. No, you're right, actually, because sometimes let's use a right side. Right side's probably this poor gals. They get the brunt, really. But as a right side, if our back row is passing tight balls on the net consistently, we're probably going to step out that right side and put our setter back in so our setter can jump
from the front row.
Yeah. And touch a ball over the plane of the net. Because she cannot do that when she's on back row. And that has nothing to do with our right side's performance. It has everything to do with our back row. We have no more options at this point.
Yeah.
We have no more options. So at this point, we need to change it, and our right side did absolutely nothing wrong, but our back row is sucking it up. So we have to then make a change to the game. It sucks, it does, but that's just part of the game.
Yeah, and that's where the whole team mentality should come into place. And instead, it's more of a why did you do that to my kid? A lot of times, not always, guys. These are pointed statements, but it does happen frequently. And what I struggle with as a coach is that this is a team sport. So at the end of the day, sure, we care about our kids' stats. Sure, when Tate scores a touchdown, I'm stoked, right? But also, I love cheering for the other kids that score touchdowns. And if Tate's touchdown contributes to a win, even better, But I don't understand why we're so obsessed with our own kids' stats that we're completely overlooking what is going on with the rest of the team. I'm going to be honest right here. Nothing pisses me off more than when we come out of a tight match and we are successful and we freaking win that match and somebody comes and complains about playing time. Nothing pisses me off more than that, because it's oh my God, did you see what just happened? Did you see what these girls or these boys were able to do? Did you completely lose sight of that when you came over here to blast me? Because your kid had to come off of the court, or your kid didn't see enough playtime according to your standards? Like, this is about the team.
Well, and
What's
guys,
What?
have those feelings at home.
not in front of your kid.
Yes, at home. Be whatever. Go have a glass of wine or freaking
Bitch to your spouse
whatever.
all night long.
Yes, into your
Go
friends.
for it.
Totally.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of friends. Okay. Well, we're on this topic.
I have no idea where this is
Parents,
going with this.
parents, as we're talking about playtime and complaining, here's a huge ick for me. Okay? When you go to complain to us, via email, text, in person, we do not give a that other parents on the team
Oh.
think your daughter should be playing or son.
Yeah.
I mean, do you know how many parents asked me this weekend why Susie, Jean,
There's a Susie in the club. You can't use that as an example.
why Billy Joel is not playing? I mean, everybody sees it. Why?
Yeah.
You know how embarrassing that is for me that
Yes.
poor little Billy.
That all these parents are like, why? Why? Have you talked to the coach? Have you done this? Have you done that? These parents, they won't stop.
And they're like, oh my gosh, Billy's like the best one on this team.
Mm-hmm.
No. Okay, parents, I know that y'all are trying to be nice. You're trying to, it's an awkward moment. You feel like you've got to say something. Don't say anything. There's nothing to be said.
Right.
You don't have to talk volleyball. You can say, hey, you want to go have some lunch?
Right.
Talk about the weather. A dog.
It's snowing in Minneapolis. Did
Yeah.
you know?
Y'all, literally anything. You don't have to talk about volleyball or to try to make small talk
Yeah.
about what just happened. I know this sounds really rude, okay? And I'm sorry if it's offending people, but that is, I don't want to hear it. That holds no stock. There's no validation in your argument with me when you
Right.
say that
All the other parents
All the other
were
parents.
saying X, Y, and Z. Yeah.
it's not. So
If
Yeah.
I think
this
that
club
is
list, Texas legacy from
Yeah.
your club list, I'm sorry, but
I think that's-
every club director and administrative staff feels this way.
right. I think that's become just a crutch and a staple in people's arguments. Is everybody else was talking about it, and
It's not just me.
it's and it's to us, like when it comes to us, it's like we know that you want to ask this question. You don't have to validate it by telling us that other people are wondering the same thing.
No,
It makes no difference to us.
Because it actually makes it worse. It does. Your whole argument goes out the window for me. Oh, okay, well.
Yeah, because again, most people don't know what they're talking about, so telling us that is not going to make a difference in our eyes. This is what our career is. This is what we do for a living. So again, we try to work really hard to be really good at what we do, and that's not to say we don't make mistakes, but it's not for a random parent on the sidelines telling you to tell us what we're doing wrong.
I am considering going back to school to be a meteorologist, though, so I can track weather and make sure that we're not picking qualifiers that are going to interrupt our desires for
Yeah.
weather.
I think one of my concerns is that people are going to take away from this that that we're not approachable or that they shouldn't say anything to us, and it's not that. I just wish that people would
There's a way to approach things.
think a little bit more before they come forward. Make sure that you've done your research, A, either of the game itself, or B, with your child, because so often the kid isn't even upset and the kid knows exactly what the reason is that they're not playing or why they have to be subbed out, for somebody else to serve. And then it's like the parents don't get that, and they, again, you said it so perfectly earlier, create this narrative in their head about what's happening, and they're absolutely oblivious to the actual facts. As oblivious as I am to what parents are doing on the sidelines, which means you know nothing, because I don't look at it but at all.
I don't want to discourage people from coming to us. But maybe it will make people think twice
Yeah.
before approaching us with something, or in the way that they approach it or handle it.
Right.
Because I think that I really don't mind. I tell my teams every year, and I've got several parents from you know, our 18s group last year that with us for years, that there was a dad that I sat with all the time and talked volleyball with because he had questions. And so early on, he was, you know, very bothered by certain things, and he would address with his kid and didn't understand or whatever. And then he started asking me questions, and I started explaining it to him, you know, from our point of view and the strategy that goes behind it and whatever. And it gave him a completely different perspective and appreciation for the game.
Right.
And so it changed his point of view, his, I think, conversations with his child, all the things.
Yeah.
And, y'all, I don't mind. I enjoy, I would rather you say, like, hey, I'm so confused. Like, can you explain this to me? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because I get it. I get that it's a lot to process and it's hard to follow, and sometimes you just need to ask some questions. But that's not the problem. It's the way that you approach a situation that ends up being the problem. So we're not telling you don't come to us. Just, you know.
Yeah. All right. Well. Cheers.
See
you on the sidelines. Okay, do it one more time. Okay. Cheers. See you on the sidelines. We're saying y'all or yeah.
And we will see.
Cheers. See y'all on the sidelines. See y'all on the sidelines. Yeah. All right. Cheers. See y'all on the sidelines.
That was the most hick you have ever said.
We'll see y'all on the sidelines. Hi, y'all.